But I'm just going to read from the John 14. Let's see if you can answer this one, Rap. But here we go. John 14. Try to debate that one.
Guy wants to debate me. And this time, you know, before I said I'm not going to debate him anymore, I already slammed his face against the ground, you know, and wrecked his whole damn life and ruined his career. But he wants to come back for some more. So here's the final onslaught. But in this debate, I want you guys to learn something about the books of the Bible. And I want you to know that I've been telling you the truth, that the Bible was infiltrated by pagans. And if you don't follow God only, you are going to go to hell for following the false doctrine of men. So if it ain't God says something and it matched the Old Testament, then it is false in the New Testament. There is no new covenant when God don't change, and the old covenant is an everlasting covenant. That means it's eternal now. It's an everlasting covenant. He ain't going to take an everlasting covenant, do away with it, and give you a new covenant. God don't change. Malachi 3:6. Go look it up. Out of all the books in the world and in the Bible, he chose the most corrupt book, which is the book of John, in which nobody knows where the book of John came from. I'm going to say that again. It's for all you guys who don't know. Nobody knows where the book of John came from. It was planted in the Bible. And who is the authors of it? No one knows who the authors of John is. Nobody even knows John is a real character. And I do mean authors. So more than one person wrote for John. Wrote for John. Whoever John is. In real life and in Hebrew, there is no such thing as Johns, and all these names they given these, that you can tell by the names that the Bible was infiltrated by Gentiles who don't know God, right? And then watch what they're going to do. They're going to hand you their multiple deities because they believed in multiple gods. They're going to make everything polytheist because that's the only thing they know. And the only way they satisfy with the Bible is if you're believing like them and going to hell with them. And this is why you have to be very careful with the Bible, because you can be reading the Bible, the infiltrated part, and be going to fucking hell. And I'm only trying to save your life, and that's why I'm passionate about it. Excuse my French. You know, scholars, and these are false scholars, believe 3 unknown persons wrote the book of John's, but they don't know. You know, as much as they claim that they are scholars, they don't know. And they say that they wrote the book of John with the sole intent to prove not only Jesus was the Messiah, but also God. So they trying to prove that Jesus is a God character, and they want to replace God with the book of John's. No one can replace God. You know, John, the actual apostle, did not exist. That's why I say even if he even existed, did not exist. And he never wrote one word. You can forget about John. John is false. It was made up. It's just like if I say I was here 3 or 4. I mean, when the Bible was written, I was back then, and I put the book of Pappy Smurf in there. You know, and you going by it and living your life and basing it off of the book I infiltrated and put in the Bible called Pappy Smurf. You know, people will bet their life on it instead of saying, who wrote the book of Pappy Smurf? And why are we reading that? And is Pappy Smurf even Hebrew? So this book period did not come from God. It was wrote by men and infiltrated and stuck in the Bible, you know, by these pagans with an agenda to make you be polytheists. And if I were you, I would try to find out who wrote the book first. So everybody can go Google it and say, Google in who wrote the book of John's, instead of blindly believing in this infiltrated crap that is going to send you to hell soon. So really listen to what I'm saying here. Really listen, you know, because everybody, a lot of people think I'm false or I'm coming with some false crap. Nah, all your leaders and all your people, many false Christs is coming. It's only a few of us that's actually going to tell you the truth. You're the deceived ones, and I'm trying to save your souls. So let's start with the beginning chapter of this infiltrated book of John's, and you will find out what I've been knowing for over 20 years and what I've been telling you for a while on this channel. That somebody else wrote it and it is not from God. It is pagan infiltrated. John 1, number 6. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. That's somebody telling the story. It is not John. And did God say he sent John? No. So as you can clearly read, somebody is writing for John. If John ever existed in the first place and he wrote, it would be stated like this: I, John, am a man sent from God. Right? I, John, the apostle, sent from God. You know, it ain't wrote like that. There was a man sent from God, is somebody writing, whose name was John.
Last night I saw upon the stair a little man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I'd wish he'd go away.
If I was writing about myself, what I say, there was a man sent from God whose name was Rap the News. No, I would say I'm just Rap the News. We can see them at it again, writing for this fictional character that don't exist, named John, again in this verse. John 1:15. John bare witness of him. See, we saw John bear witness of him. Believe John boy. And cried. He cried, yo, so it's emotional, so get into it, yo. Saying, this was he whom I spake. He that cometh after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. John said that, see? John bear witness of it. See how false that crap is? So instead of just believing God and Christ, who warned you over repeatedly and over to just obey God, watch, you got duped into believing the book of John's, which is a false book. If I challenge any of you to go find me the authors of that book. Find me the authors and say, this was the apostle of Jesus, this is the author, and I know it for a fact.
Reasonable doubt. I'm saying, sometimes the more you look, the less you really know.
You would have to go back in time and find out who the fuck John is, because he non-existent. Just like Jesus being God, non-existent. He ain't God. So instead of just believing God in Christ who warned you repeatedly, you go chasing fairy tales and end up with egg on y'all faces every damn time, screwing with me. And again, I'm trying to help you and deceive Christians like you get some salvation from the only being and God able to save you, and that is God himself. And you clowns risk your salvation on this false testimony. Do you not have brains? You think God is not going to hold you accountable when he gave you a brain? Can you just Google it in this age of information and see, okay, who is the authors of this book? I'm trying to, find out who wrote these books and why. Were they ordained by God? Were they? Are they preaching the same message that Christ preached? Are they preaching the same, because God don't change up, that Moses speak and Isaiah speak and all the prophets spoke? Are they following what Isaac did and Jacob? Or is this some new stuff when God don't change? God ain't going to change up when he was the only salvation before and give you some new salvation when God don't change. You should know that God said don't add or subtract from his words. What Jesus is doing in the New Testament is adding like hell. A new covenant, when God made an eternal, everlasting covenant, is false as hell. There is no new covenant, because you would have to discredit and get rid of the Old Testament. And then that makes God change and everything is a lie, and then why are you believing in a God in the first place? Matthew 4:10. Get away from me, Satan, Jesus declared, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Serve God only. Stop going by John. This pagan trying to make you believe in John and these sad ass damn stories, because Gentiles are scared because they wasn't given any salvation, they wasn't given any book, and God said he abhorred them. And the Gentile destroyer is coming to destroy them. They looking for some damn salvation, and they ain't finna find it because they ain't gonna believe in God. That's the only way you're gonna get salvation. You ain't gonna get salvation through a fictitious character. God gonna tell you you are a liar on the day of judgment, and all liars is going to fire, and anyone who believeth a lie. I got the Spirit of God in me, so I can see through all this crap. Luke 4, number 8. But Jesus replied, it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him. Matthew 19:17. But if you will enter into life, and that is the kingdom, keep the commandments. That's the only way you're going to get in, is obey God. That's what keep the commandments is. God wrote them. Matthew 7, number 7. Jesus replied, howbeit in vain do they worship me. That's what this guy is doing. Worshiping Christ in vain. That's what most Gentiles are doing worldwide. All 4-point-something billion of them. Worshiping Christ in vain. Teaching for the doctrines and commandments of men. So again, the book of John was wrote by men. For laying aside the commandments, says Christ, of God, you are holding to the traditions of men. You only serving and following men. Are men your God? Did God ever tell you to listen to these men? Did God tell you that the book of John was true? No. So as you see, the more you dig deeper, the less you find out that you actually know. And the more you find out, you learn I was right the entire time. You can look down on me all you want to. You're dumb. And it was you who were deceived. When you can find me the mystery pagans that wrote for John in the book of John, then come back and see me. Until then, you polytheist, unlearned pagan,
Get the fuck out of here.